Welcome to the Alliance for Bedway Communities, or ABC, April seminar. All of our seminars have been virtual this year due to the pandemic, and we hope the video format is allowing more ABC residents to hear this information. The topic today is Association Electronic Voting. In the last few years, Florida laws have changed to allow associations that would like to electronically vote for board members and vote on issues requiring owner approval to do that, vote electronically. Software is now available to help associations with their electronic voting, and today's seminar is a presentation by the host company which provides such software. Our speaker is Dan McGrady, who is Chief Technology Officer at Host. He will give us a summary of what the software is capable of, its cost, and the experiences of associations already using the software.
Hello, my name is Dan McCready. My company Host, H-O-A-S-T, does electronic voting for Florida. We're fully compliant with the statutes and the DVPR administrative rules. And the founders of the company would be my wife, Eileen. Again, we have our office in St. Petersburg, right near 4th Street North and Central Avenue. And we do electronic voting. We specialize in Florida electronic voting. Florida is the most difficult state to do electronic voting, so we decided to make that our specialty. So we offer CAMs, CEUs, to come to our classes. One class on just electronic voting, one class on other things that deal with, one class on proxies. And I'm very happy to be here and provide this class. So this class today is community elections in the digital age using electronic voting. Again, here's Dan and Eileen. Eileen's background is she was the manager in IRS who started sending tax return information electronically to us. So that made it kind of sense that she get involved in electronic voting. And my claim to fame is doing designing systems, and I received an award from President Reagan. So I designed it. Eileen knows all about moving data electronically and keeping it secure. Now today we're going to cover the Florida statutes and the administrative rules, and how current technology is driving us to digitally based activities, electronic voting. And I'll give a brief demo of my Host online voting so you can see what it actually looks like to the member. And how do you get started? So first, for the Florida statutes and the administrative rules. The great thing about Florida regarding the when they introduced electronic voting is that all of the statutes were the same. Whether you're working with a homeowner, an HOA, or a condo, or a cooperative, the statutes aren't going to change between the three. Were passed in July of 2015. And the statute said that you must be able to authenticate the member's identity. Now, this is no easy task because so often we think of your member as being an address, so that two owners, you would expect that either one could vote in some cases. You deal with just the address, but we must be able to authenticate which one actually submitted the online votes. Statutes also said that you must transmit a receipt from the online voting system. And this was the benefit that Florida gave us. A member is counted as being in attendance. That means that if just the fact that you have voted electronically, you're counted toward the attendance, your quorum has been increased purely because an electronic vote was received. That was a big benefit that Florida gave us. Now, Florida also requires a board resolution. It has 3 pieces. It has to establish the procedures. He says here the reasonable procedures where a member can opt in to do online voting. And there must be a deadline, some point where you are not allowed to opt in, and a deadline, some point where you're not allowed to opt out. So a member only opts in one time in their life unless they decide to opt out. And just to repeat, the board resolution, the procedures, the deadline for opting in, and the deadline for opting out. Now, March of 2016, the DBPR came in with their rules. And this is really when electronic voting started for Florida. DBPR said that they liked the idea that there was a receipt, but they wanted a very specific receipt. It's going to have the actual vote that you cast. It's going to have the date and time that it was submitted. And it's going to have the user identification. So you have proof that I, Dan, submitted my vote. Here's when it was received, date and time. And here's who I voted for. And DBPR also just said that for elections, electronic votes shall not be accessible to the association prior to the scheduled election. Well, we knew this all along for paper votes. Paper ballots are not accessible. They remain locked in a box waiting for the meeting time. Well, this was just going to repeat here that the fact that that vote is coming in electronically, you still must keep it secret and anonymous. So we're in fact, technology doesn't change the basis or the basic requirements of an election. Just like when the first notice is sent, how do I validate or invalidate the ballot? All those things you do now are still true. Electronic voting only allows another way for the vote to get in. And what we know is that we're using technology all the time, shopping, providing our information to Amazon, ordering things, and which I'm very proud to say that Eileen had a big part in. So electronic voting is just another piece of technology. It's nothing really that different. Now, the statutes say that in order to vote online, you must consent in writing to do online voting. You must consent in writing. Well, this is just to let you know that consenting in writing does not necessarily mean pen to paper. These are your statutes references that say you must consent in writing. 2011, Florida passed a law defining electronic signature as any electronic sound, symbol, process, anything really that is technologically accepted to indicate that I would have signed this. So now remember, now we must have a signature, and now we have a definition of electronic signature. And Florida passed the law that said that a record or signature may not be denied legal effect just because it is electronic. In fact, if a provision of law like the one I just read for voting electronically, provision of law requires a signature, an electronic signature satisfies that. And again, electronic signatures have the same effect as written signatures. So yes, the statute says you must provide your signature in writing, but this makes it very clear that you have the option of doing this electronically. Now, the benefits of electronic, how many times do we send out a ballot and it doesn't get there? Maybe we had the wrong address, maybe we didn't include enough postage, maybe somehow the Postal Service lost it, or it just took too long for it to finally get there. And how many times does the ballot get to the wrong address? You know, we don't have the current address, the member moved, or members at a different house. We have members that have more than one address outside of Florida. And the member could even be on vacation. So the point is the ballot is not getting to the voter. There's also times when there's not enough time to get the ballot to the voter and back again. When we're sending a vote to, say, Mexico or Canada or Europe, sometimes we just don't have enough time to get it there and to reasonably expect it to get back. And then when you do get a ballot back, sometimes that ballot is invalid. All of these problems go away with electronic voting. Electronic votes can be that can get to the internet, your smartphone, your computer, laptop. It's available 24/7, just like the internet is available 24/7. And wherever you are, there's the internet, and wherever the internet is, there's your vote. So it doesn't matter where you're located, and we no longer have to worry about mailing it someplace and trying to identify your physical location. And the electronic ballots, they can't be lost, they can't be dropped behind a couch, mailed the wrong address, eaten by the dog. The ballots are throughout the voting period. And as I said before, each electronic ballot adds to your election quorum. So this is what the world looks like prior to electronic voting. We have a person coming in, physically coming in, especially pre-COVID-19, physically coming in and delivering their ballot. We have ballots coming in by mail. And all these ballots go to some secure place that they're protected until the night of the meeting. Two is the night of the meeting. What do? We get that box of ballots, and then for the first time, we open it, we provide it to the volunteers, and the volunteers figure out the counts, and we end up with the results. This is how it's done prior to electronic voting. If you had only electronic voting, it would look like this. Someday this might happen, but it's not today. Florida says that electronic voting is an option. You cannot demand electronic voting, but wouldn't it be to the meeting and have the computer spit out the results to you? So here's the real world we're heading to. You still have the first line. You still have the in-person person, the person walking in and delivering a ballot or coming into the office and providing a ballot. You still have ballots coming in by mail. But look at the bottom part. Look at number 2. There's 2 new pieces here. There's check for dupes is one item. And what this is doing is it's taking these ballots out of the box, and you're looking at the outer envelope to see whether or not that address provided an electronic vote. If that outer envelope matches the list of addresses that provided electronic votes, then that ballot has to be discounted because it's a duplicate. So there's your way of guaranteeing there's going to be no duplicate ballots. The ballots that are not duplicates are given to the same crew, the same volunteers that are coming to determine the totals would be the totals of the paper received. Electronically, we already have the totals of the electronic ones. That's already been done. So when you add together the paper vote total to the electronic vote total, you have the results. Now, don't discount this offhand. The more electronic votes you have, the less this group is going to work and the less time it's going to take to determine the results. Now, WII for me. Well, you're going to save time and money. You're not going to be mailing as many ballots. You're certainly not going to be mailing ballots that aren't going to be getting to the intended target. You're going to improve the accuracy. There are no invalid votes. When you send an electronic vote to our system, it is impossible for it to be invalid. You're not going to need to handle paper for signatures. And quorum is reached by getting a certain number of votes, electronic votes, let's say. You begin opening up electronic voting the same day you put the paper ballots into the postal mail. It's reasonable, and it happens all the time today, that in the next 24 to 48 hours, you reach quorum because the voting for electronic voting happens beginning that same day. And people tend to respond to their email, which is their notification, when they receive the email. So making quorum is not only easier, it's much quicker. And the whole voting process is simpler It's simpler, it's more transparent, and member participation. You no longer are worried about people not getting to vote. You're no longer worried about people not having enough time to get their vote back. So you definitely will increase member participation. You definitely will increase quorum, and you definitely will save money on not having to mail the paper to those who have said they want electronic voting. So reduce paper and make it much easier to access the rest. And yes, security is much better. The DBPR has said that election challenges are because a person does something that they're not supposed to do, or a person does not do something that they're supposed to do. The point is, your electronic vote goes from your house or your home computer or your computer in your library, whatever computer you're using, it goes from that computer directly into the count. There is no human being touching it or seeing it, and no human being can put it back together. The security is fantastic. Now, at this point, I would like to show you what it looks like for a member to vote. And what we want is we want an easy process, nothing difficult. I've always said that you can vote electronically faster than you can find a stamp. So let's see what that looks like. This site was in place. Every association has their own site on a secure server, and their data is protected and backed up. So I'm going to log on as Andrew Jackson, since this is a presidential place. And the system knows that Andrew Jackson is a voter. So the system will immediately present Andrew Jackson with an online voting consent form. Remember, we talked about the resolution has to say how the process of opting in will occur. My recommendation is you have it occur in the software. That way, you are not producing the form, you are not paying to mail it out to everybody, and you're not doing the filing. All of the work has been removed from your area and put on the software. So Andrew Jackson signs this form saying, yep, I want to vote online. This only has to be done once for Andrew Jackson's life, unless he changes his mind and opts out. And now he's in the voting area. There are two votes here. The first vote is a secret vote. The second vote is not. The second vote would be a proxy vote or a survey. The point is, to the voter, it makes no difference. Again, keeping things simple. Over here, if you want to say click here to vote, you land inside the ballot. This is the ballot. You're going to vote for one of these folks. We must see the candidate information sheets here. These are the three guys running for our board. We got a pretty strong board. You make your selection. You sign the ballot. You say vote and confirm. And that is the entire process for that vote. That's the entire process. Now, if there's another vote, we'll take you immediately right to it. Again, keeping things simple. So in this case here, do I want to waive reserves? And I'll say yes, I'll vote, and I'll confirm. And better yet, when I send in a paper vote, I don't know that it got there. I don't know that it was valid. And here with electronic voting, you go to your email, and there's your proof of receipt. It says that I voted. That was the date it was received, and that's who I voted for. A receipt for each vote. So that was the demo. Again, simple as can be. You can vote in about 30 seconds. And again, it can never be invalid. And you have an email receipt. So how do you get started? Okay. First of all, number one, we say choose your software provider, and I hope that means you're going to choose us. You're going to choose host. Uh, Number two is some people reverse these. They do the board resolution first, and I encourage you, do not do that. Your resolution is going to say how the process happens, and the process is going to differ depending upon the software provider. For instance, when you're working with us, we want the board resolution to say the opt-in process happens online, and what it's not saying, but what we know, is that the board and the CAM have no work, no involvement. Do that, so you would have to write your resolution differently. You would have to say, my resolution is going to be looking for paper, and someone's going to receive it and file it. So figure out your software provider first and take advantage of the features that they can give you. The number three, you're going to provide your community notice of that you're going to vote on the board resolution. The notice must be a minimum 14 days. So there's a 14-day lag time there, 14 days that you must wait. And I recommend that you affidavit your notice of this voting on the resolution. Now, while you're waiting for that 14 days, that's the perfect time to do number four. Begin working with your provider to build your voting site. If you're working with us, we got 14 days where one option is you give us an Excel file so we can load your data and build your site. But use that 14 days that you have to wait anyway to get yourself going. And in that same 14 days, if you're using our site, our software says we give you unlimited voting opportunities, create a survey. Create a survey as an introduction to what it looks like to vote online. I could tell you that it takes 30 seconds, but if you can experience it, if your members experience it, they're more likely to stick with electronic voting and start saving you money and time in the future. So create a survey or of some sort of survey or practice vote. When you get to number six, you're going to meet as a board. You're going to vote on the resolution and pass the resolution. With all of the work having been done ahead of time, when you pass the resolution, you also announce your survey question or your practice votes, and then your board notes include passing the resolution and beginning the process of introducing the members to electronic voting. So FAQs, no matter who you're talking to, whether you're talking to me or any other company, the first question should always be, are you compliant with Florida statutes and DBPR administrative rules? Don't assume because it's being sold in Florida that it's compliant in Florida. Make sure you ask that question. And I recommend you get some sort of response in writing. Perhaps an officer sends you an email, something. We will give you an affidavit saying that we are compliant. And how does an eligible member opt in and out? Well, I just told you that we're going to do that for you. The software will just take care of all of that for you. If the software is not taking care of that for you, how much is your workload increasing, or is the company you're working with, are they going to do the paper processing? But you need to know how it's happening. And the opt-in deadline dates, this can get a little bit confusing. You know, when you receive an opt-in form, you then have to compare it against the date in the resolution to make sure it has been validly received. In other words, the timing is right. And if it has not been validly received, then you must set it aside, and when the election is over, grab all of those and then enter them. So how this handles is important. Again, if you're using our software, you do nothing. The software does everything for you. And our electronic ballot results combined with paper results. I like the combining, the hybrid system, electronic and paper, so you have one system of record. That's not required by Florida. So you can have two divorced practices. You can keep them that way, or you can combine them and have one system of record. And how and when can you determine election quorum? There's nothing wrong with knowing the quorum as the votes are coming in. You cannot know who's winning. You can certainly know quorum. We build the quorum number for you. We tell you what quorum you've reached, not what quorum you're looking for, but what quorum you've reached throughout the whole process. And how do you prevent duplicate e-ballots and paper ballots? That's a critical question, and I did show you that we're going to give you the list to compare against so that you know when you pull an envelope out of the box, is this envelope a duplicate or not a duplicate? And how do you keep election results from being accessible to the association? This is now all electronic now. Now, in our system, we don't make the counts available until the election is closed. If you were to close it prematurely, you will be captured on a permanent audit trail that cannot be edited. So we can prove that the election was done correctly or prove that it wasn't. That's a great thing if you're getting an election challenge. Somebody thinks you peaked, and an uneditable audit trail can be your gift. It can be what you show and kill the election challenge immediately. And that's it for me, all about electronic voting. And again, my company is Host, and this is just what we do.
Okay, Dan, I thought that was very interesting. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I enjoy. I have lots of questions here so that we could go through them, and you know, I think it's really interesting that associations often have trouble getting a quorum, and it's because sometimes the quorum requires 75% of all of the association members, and to get 75% of them to even send the paperwork in is sometimes difficult. Do you have some experience with the degree to which electronic voting would increase an association's ability to reach a quorum?
Well, I can tell you that no one has ever had less quorum, and some associations have gotten their highest quorum the first time out, and it only gets better. The average opting in rate in Florida for let's say the first year, and 45% usually reflects 80% of all the votes received. Sounds like funny math, but the 55% that are not opting in tend to be a huge percentage of those that aren't going to vote on paper or electronic. So 45% gets you a big kick in the 80% of the votes you will receive.
Interesting. So
we have one client that is 100% electronic, and we have many that are up at the board, the marketing of the board, and how willing they are to do surveys, and how interesting or important the survey is. If your survey to get people interested in electronic voting is what is your favorite flavor ice cream, you won't get nearly as much reaction or interest as if your survey is, would you like to make our condo entirely smoke-free inside and out, or do you want speed humps? And again, you can't make decisions where they sit on these big issues.
how do associations pay for this service?
They pay one time. It's a one-time fee, and that gives them 1 year of unlimited use. And since it's unlimited use, if you're using our system, you want to do surveys. They're free at this point. And once you're a client, do as many of them as you want. Start building up that opt-in rate.
So what would be a typical 1 year fee for an association? Does it depend on its size? What is the fee? How is it going to be calculated?
It depends on a few things. The most basic fee is $600 plus 50 cents an address. So if you have a condo of 100 units, that would be $650 a year. That's the most basic fee.
Okay.
Now those or TOPS or Vertilink, VMS, any of those would be $700 plus $1 an address. And with those, we will update their information from their property management software every 24 hours all year long. So it's a little bump in price, but there's nothing they need to do to keep their data current.
Okay. Now, are people getting into the system to place their votes? They're getting in, it's always going to be an email. I guess it's not an email. It would, or do you get to those people through an email? Or is it another kind of a login, another kind of an app that they would need?
Yeah, in Florida, you're not allowed legally to vote via email, not for an association. We use email though to give you your credentials to log in. But the bottom line is you have to have a username, a password, and your association site is. So we provide an email that will have their temporary username, their temporary password, and a link to get back. And the first thing they do when they log on is they have to change their username and password. That's just a matter of that's just for security. So the vote remains on a secure server. There's no sending a ballot in or out via email. I don't know if you know or not, but there's probably nothing less to send an election ballot through email would be just really a violation of the protections that we're trying to maintain. And Florida doesn't allow it anyway.
Okay. Other questions from you guys? Harold, we have to unmute you.
I have a
Harold.
question. Am I unmuted now? Okay.
Yes.
Our biggest problem in our association is quorum. The percentage is great for us. It's only a third. However, we have a lot of people that never bother showing up and they don't vote. That means one of two things: we're doing a very good job or we're doing a very poor job. And so, can you, with your system, can you tell people or inform people who has voted, not how they voted, but who has voted? So if we need more people to make sure we have a quorum, we can get it?
Yes, if you're talking about an election, you can know the addresses because they're being checked off.
Okay.
And you don't know it, but you can see that. And if it's a proxy vote, you can see the whole thing. I mean, this proxy vote is not secret at all. You can even enter them as fast as you receive them.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what we do with proxy vote. So it's good. So we can go back if we're missing something. We have to get enough. That's what we do. We have to do it every annual meeting. Same thing every year.
We also offer a special email feature that you can email just the people. So that's a nice little way of sending out an email to the what you call the low-hanging fruit. These are the people who want to vote. They've already opted in. There's no problem with the deadline, and yet they have not voted yet. So send a message just to them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question I had is, do you have any of the large property management companies involved in trying to get associations to go with electronic voting? When one of the large ones
We have quite a few that
do you have some of them that are working with you to try to promote?
Yes.
Which ones are the ones that are involved already?
Well, resource management, First Service, Condominium Associates, and down in the Miami area, we have a property management company that has provided seemingly free electronic voting to all their associations because they're using us. That's Marquee. And eventually, that's where it will not be a decision from the association. It will be for using it, but eventually, I think the property management companies will be offering it as another feature.
Right.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One is because there is competition on what property management company you're going to use, and that kind of makes them sit out front. And the other is a property management company is not going to want to use one software in one community and another software in another community. That's just going to make their job harder, because ultimately it's the CAM that is going to in the actual vote when it happens.
Well, all of the companies that you mentioned are active with the associations that belong to the Alliance for Bedway Communities. So that's a pretty important point, that they can go to their management company for help and advice in getting started. Could you tell us how many associations are now doing this, and maybe on a percentage basis of all the associations in Florida? Are we at the 2% level or the 20% level? What would be your guess about that?
My guess is we're 1 or 2%, not much more than that. It's hard for me to find out, because I'm talking about, how big is my competitor, and they're not going to tell me, and I'm not going to tell them. So it's hard to really know. But I was told that we were the largest software company doing electronic voting in Florida. It started off, it was a Becker ballot, the Becker Polikoff in wherever. And we passed them. So I've been told that we're the largest, but there's no way of really knowing. The worrisome thing is that there's probably maybe 12 to 15 different software companies actually doing electronic voting in Florida today. And I think only 4 might be compliant. That's why we really stress, ask if you're compliant. That the Easters, the old thing when you put it on your car to not get a ticket through a radar trap. That was sold across the United States. It wasn't legal in every state, but it's up to you to make that, to actually do that research or ask the question.
There's no, at least in the near term, there's no association that would be wanting to, or maybe even permitted to go to 100% electronic voting. The paper voting is still required.
We have one community that is 100% electronic. What you cannot do is force it. But as it turned out, that everybody in there, so they just make a notification and they meet their quorum, in the first 24 hours, and their life is easy. So the rule is you cannot require it. You always have to allow it to be an option, and a person can request paper.
Now, once somebody declares that they want to be an electronic voter, that means that the association knows who those people are, and they don't have to send them all the paperwork that's involved with voting. That correct?
Yeah. Now yes, but that's not in the statute. There's nothing in the statute about that. That was an opinion from DBPR for the first 3 years of electronic voting. Now they're talking about getting together and trying to put something in the statute to say something. But right now, that is the assumption from DBPR. And so that's what every client we have is doing. If you opt in for electronic voting, then they do not mail them a ballot.
Okay.
Once the mailing list information for all of those addresses that are not opted in, because otherwise it would be very difficult to pull out all the ones that have opted in and come up with a mailing list. So we do that for them.
Okay. Interesting. Well, those are the questions that I had. How about you, Del? Any other questions?
No, you covered it. I'm just assuming you can also use it just to change your declaration, right?
You do not need to change your declaration, no.
No, but you could use this process to change your declaration.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. In fact, a lot of people believe that you'll never get your declarations changed without electronic voting, because you have to have such a high percentage that it's just really tough without taking advantage of absolutely every vote.
Right. I have nothing further, Bill.
How about you, Harold?
I just have,
One thing, go ahead.
yes. Our association is one of the our association is one of the associations that you listed. And so I assume that if I call them and say, hey, look, I want to do voting registration, they will be say, oh yeah, we can do that. And then I guess they're going to charge us $600 plus the 50 cents per unit. The other thing is, I assume with your price structure, the larger the association, actually it's cheaper because you don't have that, the 600 is amortized over, greater number of people. Is that correct?
Sure, that's correct, but not the first thing you said. The association I listed, they're the ones that recommend us, and they're the ones that want their associations to use us, because there's so many of them that are using us now. It's like First Service. We're in over 45 properties, First Service properties. Electronic voting. First Service says if you want electronic voting, we suggest you go in this direction.
Okay, I see. I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there is no other questions, Dan, really, that was very informative and interesting answers to the questions as well. In particular, it's interesting that all of the associations in the ABC, or 90% of the associations in the ABC, are using one of the property management companies that you mentioned before, so that they do have someone to go to. I don't know if there's a specific person in each one of those organizations that has the information that's needed for the when the association asks a question, but I think that it would be good if the property management companies were to keep those boards informed of what the opportunity is here. I'm particularly interested, as you say, and especially if you have the unlimited agreement, it'd be easy to do surveys, and I think sometimes that's a thing that boards want to do, but they don't do it because it's so much work to do. So I think that's another advantage. So thank you very much for the information that you provided today, and we will send this information out to all the ABC associations, and hopefully they'll follow up with their property management companies, if not with you. Thanks very much. We have only one other seminar to present in our 2020-2021 season. It will be a summary of Florida legislative session developments that are important to ABC associations and residents. The season is scheduled to end on April 30th, and our video will be made just after that. Travis Moore, who follows Tallahassee activity for Community Association Institute, or CAI, and for property management company First Service Residential, will provide the summary. Thanks for listening, and be safe till we see you again.